There was a time when a tractor didn't need a screen, just a steady hand, a good ear, and a bit of faith, back when iron meant something. And mornings started with the sound of an engine turning over in the cold. These weren't perfect machines, but they showed up day after day, and somehow many of them still do. Massey Ferguson 135. There's a certain kind of quiet confidence that comes with a Massey Ferguson 135, the kind you don't question. Built through the mid-1960s into the mid-1970s, it was never meant to be flashy. It was built to work and to keep working. Under that simple hood sat a tough little engine, most commonly the Perkins 3-cylinder diesel, putting out about 45 horsepower. Not big numbers, even for its time, but out in the field, it felt like more. It had a steady rhythm to it, a soft, familiar chug that farmers could recognize from a distance. Light on its feet, easy on fuel, and simple enough that a man with a basic set of tools could keep it alive for decades. No complicated systems, no unnecessary parts, just honest engineering. You could start it on a cold morning, hook it to a brush hog, a small plow, or a hay rake, and it would do the job without complaint. What made the 135 truly bulletproof wasn't just the engine, it was the balance. The way everything worked together without strain. The transmission, the hydraulics, the steering, all built with a kind of mechanical common sense that's hard to find now. And when something did wear out, you fixed it. Parts were everywhere, and still are, even today. You'll find them tucked into barns, or still moving slowly across small fields. Paint faded, seat worn, but spirit untouched. It's the kind of tractor a man remembers, not for what it could do on paper, but for how often it didn't let him down. And if that little Massey was the dependable hand for the small jobs, the next machine carried that same spirit, just with a bit more muscle behind it. International Harvester 886. By the late 1970s, farms were getting bigger and the work was getting heavier, but not every farmer wanted more complexity. That's where the International Harvester 886 found its place. Built from the mid-1970s into the early 80s, it carried around 90 horsepower from a strong, naturally aspirated diesel, and it delivered that power in a way that felt steady, not rushed. It had a deeper tone than the smaller tractors, a low, confident rumble that settled in once it was warmed up. You could feel the weight of it through the seat, solid, planted like it belonged in the field. Whether it was pulling a disc through stubborn ground or running a baler hour after hour, the 886 didn't try to impress, it just kept going. Inside, it was still simple by today's standards. Mechanical controls, straightforward layout, nothing that couldn't be understood after a long day, and a quick look under the hood. Farmers appreciated that, because when something needed attention, it wasn't a mystery. It was a fixable machine, and that's a big part of what made it bulletproof. The engine didn't push itself too hard. It was built with margin, room to breathe, and that meant it lasted. Transmission components were heavy enough to take years of real field work, and when wear finally showed up, parts were there, tools were enough, and knowledge was passed down from one generation to the next. You'll still hear them today, especially in the fall, working through rows with a kind of calm determination. Not fast, not fancy, just faithful. The kind of tractor that earned its keep long ago and never really stopped. But long before tractors reached that size and strength, there was a smaller machine that taught a whole generation what reliable really meant. Ford 3000. Before farms needed big horsepower, they needed a tractor that could do a little bit of everything, and do it well. The Ford 3000 stepped into that role in the mid-1960s, and it stayed there for nearly a decade. It wasn't large, carrying about 45 horsepower in its most common form, but out on a working farm, it felt just right. It had a lighter touch than the bigger machines. Easy to steer, easy to handle, especially in tight spaces, around barns, along fence lines, in hayfields where precision mattered more than brute force. The 3000 found its rhythm. That 3-cylinder engine had a sharp, steady note, not loud, but purposeful. You could hear it settle into work and just stay there. What farmers trusted most was its simplicity. No extra weight, No extra systems, just the essentials done right. The transmission was straightforward, the hydraulics dependable, and the whole machine felt like something you could understand without needing a manual in your hand. And when something wore down, you fixed it in the shed, not in a dealership. That's what made it bulletproof. Not that it never needed attention, but that it always gave you a way forward. Parts were easy to find, and the design never fought against you. It was a tractor that respected the man working on it as much as the work itself. Even now, you'll see them still moving, mowing pastures, pulling wagons, doing the quiet jobs that never really go away. Faded blue paint, a bit of rust here and there, but still earning their place. And while the Ford 3000 handled the lighter side of farm life with grace, the next machine came from a much earlier time when steel was thicker, engines were slower, and reliability meant something even simpler. Farmall M. Long before comfort, before convenience, there was the kind of tractor that simply had to work. The Farmall M came out of the late 1930s and carried on into the early 50s, right through some of the hardest years American farms ever saw. It wasn't refined, it wasn't quiet, but it was there, every single day. Under the hood was a big 4-cylinder gasoline engine, delivering about 40 horsepower in its most common setup. Slow turning, heavy breathing, built to last. When you started a Farmall M, you felt it come alive through the whole frame. A deep, steady pulse, almost like a heartbeat. It didn't rush. It didn't need to. Out in the field, pulling a plow through tough soil or dragging a set of cultivators row after row, it just leaned into the work and stayed there. No hesitation, no second guessing. Everything about it was straightforward. Open platform, simple controls, nothing hidden. If something went wrong, you didn't go looking for answers. You already knew where to start. Wrenches, grease, a little time, and it was back in the field. That kind of design made it more than durable. It made it dependable in a way that's hard to explain today. And that's why so many of them are still around, not sitting in museums, but running. Maybe not every day, maybe not on the biggest jobs, but still turning soil, still hauling loads, still earning their keep after all these years. The Farmall M didn't just prove that a tractor could last, it set the standard. And as farms began to grow and demand more power, one machine stepped forward with a little more strength, but the same unshakable spirit. Case 930. As the 1960s rolled in, farms began asking for more acres, more pull, more hours in the seat. The Case 930 answered that call without losing the kind of simplicity farmers trusted. Built through that decade, it carried around 95 horsepower from a big, slow-turning diesel, the kind of engine that didn't need to shout to prove its strength. When you brought a 930 to life, there was a deep, steady rumble, not sharp, not hurried, just a heavy sound that settled in and stayed with you. Out in the field, hooked to a plow or a chisel, it didn't feel strained. It felt planted, like it had more to give, even when the soil turned tough and the load pulled hard. The design was honest, no extra complications, just solid steel, mechanical controls, and a layout that made sense the moment you climbed up. You could see what was happening, feel what the tractor was doing, and that connection mattered. Because when something needed attention, it wasn't hidden behind layers. It was right there, waiting for a wrench and a bit of know-how. That's part of what made the 930 bulletproof. It wasn't just built strong, it was built forgiving. The engine ran with margin, the drivetrain handled years of real field work, and when wear finally showed up, you didn't replace the tractor, you repaired it. Parts were available, and the work was doable. Even now, you'll still find them out on open ground, pulling, working, doing the jobs they were built for. Maybe a little slower than the modern machines, but just as steady. And as reliable as the Case 930 proved to be, there was another tractor from that same era that took versatility to a whole different level, becoming a true everyday partner on farms across the country. Allis-Chalmers D17. By the late 1950s, farms needed a tractor that could wear many hats, something that could move from field work to chore work without missing a beat. The Allis-Chalmers D17 stepped into that role and stayed there for nearly a decade. It carried about 52 horsepower in its most common setup, enough to handle serious work, but still nimble when the job called for it. There was a lively feel to the D17, a quicker response when you opened the throttle, a sharper tone from that four-cylinder engine, not loud in a harsh way, but energetic. You could feel it in the seat, a kind of readiness that made long days a little easier. Whether it was pulling a plow in the spring, running a baler in the heat of summer, or hauling wagons in the fall, it adapted without complaint. One thing farmers trusted was its hydraulic system. Strong, responsive. It gave the tractor a kind of versatility that set it apart in its time. And like so many machines from that era, it kept things simple where it mattered. Mechanical controls, open access, and a layout that didn't fight you when it came time to maintain it. That's where its bulletproof nature really showed. It wasn't just about lasting, it was about staying useful. Parts were easy to come by, repairs didn't require anything fancy, and the tractor itself seemed to forgive the long hours and hard use. It was built to be part of the farm, not a machine you worried about. Even today, you'll see D17s still earning their keep. Maybe not in the biggest fields, but always doing something that matters. Still reliable, still ready. And as versatile as that Allis-Chalmers proved to be, the next machine took a step toward even greater power, built for farmers who needed something that could handle the heaviest work of its time. International Harvester 1066. By the early 1970s, horsepower was no longer a luxury, it was a necessity. Fields were wider, implements were heavier, and time mattered more than ever. The International Harvester 1066 stepped into that moment with authority. Built through the first half of the 70s, it delivered around 125 horsepower from a turbocharged diesel, strong, direct, and unmistakable. You didn't just hear a 1066, you felt it. That engine had a deep growl that turned into a steady pull once it was under load. Hook it to a big plow or a heavy disc, and it would lean in without hesitation. There was weight behind it, real weight, the kind that held the ground and kept traction when the soil fought back. For all that power, it kept a kind of mechanical honesty. Controls were straightforward, systems were mostly mechanical, and the layout made sense to the man sitting in the seat. You didn't need a screen to tell you how it was doing. You could hear it, feel it, understand it, and when something needed attention, it was still a tractor you could work on, not something locked away behind complexity. That's part of what made it bulletproof. The engine was built with strength in mind, not just numbers. The drivetrain could handle years of heavy pulling, and the whole machine was designed to take real farm use, not just look good on paper. And when parts wore down, they could be replaced, keeping the tractor alive season after season. Even today, a 1066 out in the field still turns heads, not because it's new, but because it never really stopped being useful. Still pulling, still working, still earning respect. And while that kind of raw power changed what tractors could do, the next machine proved that you didn't always need size to build something truly dependable. Massey Ferguson 165. Not every farm needed a giant, but every farm needed something it could count on. The Massey Ferguson 165 found that balance in the mid-1960s, and it held on to it for years. Built through the early 70s, it delivered around 50 horsepower from a rugged Perkins diesel, smooth, steady, and always ready when the day began. There was a calmness to the 165, started up on a cool morning, and it settled into a quiet, even rhythm, the kind that didn't wear on you after a long day. It wasn't trying to impress anyone, but hook it to a plow, a mower, or a baler, and it would just go to work, hour after hour. Without fuss, it had enough weight to feel grounded, but not so much that it lost its versatility. You could take it from the field straight into the yard, feed cattle, move wagons, handle chores that never made the headlines, but kept a farm running. And through it all, it stayed predictable. No surprises, no sudden quirks, just steady performance. That's what made it truly bulletproof. The engine was built to last. The systems were simple, and everything about it felt like it had been designed with the farmer in mind. When something wore out, it wasn't the end of the road. It was just another repair, another season ahead. Parts were available, knowledge was shared, and the tractor kept going. Even now, you'll find 165 still working in quiet corners of the countryside, doing the same jobs they did decades ago, not because they have to, but because they still can. And while that Massey proved how dependable a mid-sized tractor could be, the next machine carried that same reliability into a different color and onto farms that needed a little more strength without giving up simplicity. Ford 5000. By the mid-1960s, Ford had found its stride, and the 5000 became one of those tractors that just fit the times. Built from the mid-60s into the mid-70s, it delivered around 65 horsepower from a strong, no-nonsense diesel. Not excessive, but more than enough for the work most farms demanded. There was a solid feel to the 5000 the moment you climbed on. The platform was simple, the controls were right where you expected them, and the engine had that steady, confident note, a low, even sound that didn't change much, whether you were easing along or pulling hard. It gave you a sense that the tractor wasn't being pushed. It was simply doing what it was built to do. Out in the field, it handled a little bit of everything. Plowing in the spring, cutting hay in the summer, hauling loads when the days got long. It moved through the seasons without complaint. It wasn't the biggest machine around, but it had enough strength to stay useful and enough balance to stay efficient. What made it truly bulletproof was how little it asked from you. The design stayed close to the basics: mechanical systems, straightforward maintenance, and parts that were easy to find when the years started to show. Farmers didn't have to guess with it. They understood it, and that meant they could keep it going. Even now, you'll still see 5000s out there. Blue paint worn thin, engines still turning over with that same familiar sound. Not perfect, but dependable in a way that modern machines sometimes forget. And as steady as that Ford proved to be, there was one tractor that seemed to define reliability for an entire generation, a machine that many still measure all others against. John Deere 4020. By the time the 1960s were in full swing, one tractor had already begun to earn a reputation that would outlive generations. The John Deere 4020, built from the early 60s into the early 70s, carried around 95 horsepower from a proven 6-cylinder diesel. Smooth, strong, and built for the long haul. There was something unmistakable about the way a 4020 came to life. A steady crank, then that deep, even sound settling in. Not loud, not rushed, just confident. Out in the field, it felt balanced in a way few tractors ever did. Hook it to a plow, a field cultivator, or a planter, and it pulled with a kind of quiet authority, never feeling like it was at its limit. The controls were simple, almost second nature after a few hours in the seat. Everything was where it should be. You didn't fight the tractor, you worked with it, and that made long days feel just a little shorter. It was the kind of machine that gave back what you put into it. What made the 4020 truly bulletproof wasn't just the engine, it was the whole design. Durable components, straightforward mechanics, and a level of build quality that could take years of real farm work without breaking its stride. And when something finally did wear down, it could be repaired, not replaced. Parts were everywhere, and the knowledge to keep them running was passed from one farmer to the next. Even today, you'll still find 4020s out there, working fields, pulling loads, doing honest labor long after their time should have passed. Not because they were perfect, but because they were right. And maybe that's what all these machines had in common. They weren't built to impress, they were built to stay. Out there, across quiet fields and long gravel roads, these tractors are still telling their story. Not in museums, not behind ropes, but in motion, turning soil, cutting hay, hauling loads, just like they always have. Decade after decade, they've outlasted trends, outworked expectations, and proven that good iron doesn't fade, it endures. For the men who ran them, these weren't just machines. They were partners, reliable in ways that went beyond numbers, beyond horsepower, into something you could trust when the day got long and the work had to be done. And maybe that's what we remember most. Not how powerful they were, but how often they showed up and never let us down. Even now, if you listen closely on a still morning, you might just hear one of them, still working, still holding on,